and government has confirmed the state of disaster on electricity has ended with immediate effect. Listening in on the utterances of the Finance Minister is Wayne Duvenage of civil rights group organization Undoing Tax Abuse. They are the ones that took the decision of government to implement a state of disaster on electricity to court, and he joins us now for more on the story. Wayne, thank you very much for your time. So quite a bit to get through. Maybe let's start with the news coming in from Parliament from Enoch Gotongwana saying that they've temporarily withdrawn Eskom's exemption from reporting irregular expenditure.
Yes, this is good news. We hope it's a permanent decision and not a temporary one, and we'll be watching the space very carefully. But clearly, the furor that erupted across civil society on this decision was justified, and I think the minister realizes that that decision was wrong. So it's a 4-day-old gazette now, and one has to wonder who's advising the minister or Treasury to go down this road, because when you look at the reasons provided by the chairperson of Eskom, these all pertain to poor governance, poor administration, a lack of financial mismanagement. They are not reasons to justify them being exempted from providing this information to all oversight bodies, including the Auditor General. So we're pleased that decision has been taken so quickly to reverse it. But now the trust deficit gets even wider between society and government, because that was a bad decision, as was the state of disaster one. And they can't keep making these poor decisions and having to reverse them. It just doesn't do government and do confidence in this country any good.
Let's get into that confirmation that the state of disaster on electricity has been ended with immediate effect. Give us a little bit of background in terms of when you decided, well, something is not right here, and approached the courts.
Yes, so back, I think it was in beginning of February, in the President's State of the Nation address, he announced that a state of disaster for electricity or energy had been put into place. We had a good look at the reasons why. We looked at the history of what has been happening in the electricity crisis, decisions that were taken by the committees that had been set up, and there was no need for the state of disaster. We have all the mechanisms in place to deal with the emergency matters and get to fixing Eskom. In fact, they've been ignoring so much of that for a long time right now. So declaring a state of disaster was the wrong reason. And we've seen what happens in a state of disaster with the PPE during the COVID period, where it's almost a license to now go on a spending spree for the wrong reasons sometimes. So we decided to challenge this in court through an urgent interdict and a matter that then became an expedited case. Government were missing all the deadlines on filing their papers. We were going to be meeting with the Deputy Judge President and the parties that we're acting against in the next week or two, and this morning we got confirmation from them that they will be going back on that decision. They will be reversing that decision, and they'll be settling our legal costs. So this is a good development. So two good big announcements for civil society today and for this country.
Sure. How far gone had the regulations and spending, you speak of a spending spree and trying to avert that the second time around for the country? Do we know how far gone some decisions had been made and monies spent in terms of the state of disaster?
But we don't know the exact detail. I don't think we can see that it wasn't like the COVID-19 state of disaster where there was extreme urgency in dealing with the pandemic. It wasn't at the same scale, and they've got regulations anyway and laws to work through and work with in dealing with the expenditure that they needed to circumvent the energy crisis anyway. So I think they know and they realize now, going through everything, that they hadn't really got to grips with implying those regulations and putting in place the spending or the actions that were required in a state of disaster. So I don't think they had really advanced too far down the line, which possibly made them realize that they didn't need the state of disaster. It was wrong to declare it, which is why they've made this decision to reverse it.
In fact, the COGTA Minister will be giving a briefing at about 2 p.m. on this particular issue. But that we find ourselves here, and you mentioned that there was little to no resistance on the part of government to your application. There were no show in courts, and now they've been ordered to even pay your costs. Should tell us what as a country?
Well, it should tell us that there's a problem in decision-making at government at a national level. There is some either poor advice that is being given, there is not a focus on long-term consequences, on the impacts on society at large, that they're not putting the citizens and the country's best interests central to some of these decisions. And again, we have this wide trust deficit. In fact, the Edelman Trust Barometer shows that South Africa is the lowest trust in its government from a citizen point of view. This doesn't bode well for that. So it speaks to a government that's out of touch with the reality of the implications of some of these decisions they're making.
Thank you very much to Wayne Duvenage. He's the CEO of OUTA.